Welcome to Kectil World Youth Network podcast. We bring voices from around the world, perspectives, and point of views grounded in lived reality, especially those that are important to be heard by the world's youth. Today is a very special day because we have Ms. Lenaa Kumar joining us again for part two of a podcast series we have been having with Lenaa. So, if you are yet to listen to part one, please make sure that you tune into our podcast titled Woman or Pause, the Woman, the Body, and the Inner Transformation. So, to reintroduce, Lena is a highly acclaimed author with her previous title, The Autobiography of God. It became a resounding success, and she's also a highly acclaimed film actor in India with close to 3 decades in the movie industry. Above all, she is very special to the Kectil family as she has been a friend, guide, and mentor, and a very strong voice within the Kectil network for the past 3 years. So personally for me, I have had a lot of interactions with her, just like not just in our podcast, part one of our podcast, but also a long while back when we were having discussions about Kectil. She got very fascinated by the youth network and she wanted to be part of it. In like how the question that Lena asked me first thing was, how can I contribute, or how can I actually speak with the youth of Kectil? And from then on, the journey has been so beautiful and so engaging for all of us. We have had Lena join us for Atlanta's, the international conference in Atlanta. She was part of the South Asia Regional Conference. She has hosted one of the most successful mental health webinars that we have had, and much more. And a very dear friend of Sherry's, and very, very special to all of us at Kectil. And we have been mesmerized by the way she sees the world, and now she's releasing her next book titled Woman or Boss. So part one was where Lena had introduced about us to the world of womenopause and her perspectives. And today we come back with so much more. Welcome, Lena. Welcome again to our podcast today.
Thank you, Ashwathy. Thank you for having a part two of the podcast. And thank you more than all of this for introducing me to the Kectil family and to Sherry. You were the very starting point of all of this, and I'm so grateful. It's been such a wonderful journey so far. So many years already passed by. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, just to recap, in part one of this podcast series, we spoke about the book Womanopause and took a discussion to a different plane altogether, speaking about the importance of youth understanding women from a non stereotypical lens, and also woman taking ownership and owning the power that she has. So today I want us to go a little deeper into the worldview you carry, Lena, and understand related aspects of feminism, power, culture, and human rights from the perspective of women and the space they hold in this world. You are a very powerful woman, and not everyone may have had that journey that can make someone as grounded yet powerful like you. So we really want to hear from you. And today, I want the youth to see the world through the lens that you wear, Lena. Yeah.
The lens that I wear and through which I look at the world is very grounded in spirituality. And when I say spirituality, I'm referring to all the talk that I have given in my first book, The Autobiography of God. It's
Yeah.
not religion. When I say spirituality, I don't mean religion. I mean that understanding of all things being one, and that one being ourself, and that self being life. And I
Yeah.
look at the world as a life form in itself. And all of us are part of that world, an inseparable part of it. And the world is an inseparable part of us. And once we see it as our very self and an extension of ourself, it becomes less scary at some point. But some amount of fear of the world is very good because the world has a lot of lessons to teach us, which are usually quite harsh. And whether it's the world or whether it's just nature herself, nature is a very strict and difficult mother. And she usually teaches through hard lessons, and as human beings, we need to embrace that part of life, that life is hard. It's not a bed of roses. It is not soft. And I know that most of the youth of Kectil know that very firsthand and are very aware of the world being quite a harsh place. Knowing that, we need to understand that it is still a part of ourselves. And to deny that is to create, as Carl Jung would have called it, a shadow self.
Mm.
When we want to only see the positive in life and want to say everything that is hard or negative or difficult is not me and is not my life and should not be part of my life, we create a split in our mind. And we want to keep moving towards the positive, the good, the being the good person, being the good girl, the good boy, and getting all the accolades, and not ever having done anything wrong, not being bad in any way. And that's not possible. We are all an absolutely equal mixture of good and bad, right and wrong. And we have to embrace ourselves and the world through that lens, is what I have understood in my own life.
Yes. So I just want us to take a stab at this word feminism because that's something that I just wanted to uh, start off the discussion with. It's a very highly misunderstood word, and people always think that feminism is just about women. But I know now I understand it's about humanity itself. So can you share what are your thoughts on that, and why is this word fairly misunderstood by the world?
Feminism as a movement is one thing, but
Mm.
how did the movement ever begin is a totally different thing.
Mm.
So, on one side, we see that women had a lot of injustice and unjust situations that they found themselves in over the um, decades and centuries that have gone past. And generally, women living in a masculine or a male dominant world and industry, um, they have fought for their rights and they have fought for equality. And all of this is what we usually call the feminist movement.
Yeah.
However, if you look at how did all of this really start, you will see a very different picture of
Mm.
the commercial world, the world of want creating workers, the
Mm.
worker bee world, where you need more and more workers to be recruited for jobs.
Mm.
In that industrial era, you will see that women, who are 50% of the population, were not participating in the workforce. They were
Mm.
homemakers.
Yeah.
And the industrial complex wanted to get those 50% into the workforce.
Mm.
And what way to make a woman get out of her comfort zone of her home and her kitchen and her children, to abandon all of that and get out and actually work in the man's world?
Mm.
So the only way that you could have come up with that is through propaganda. And the
Yeah.
propaganda was to tell women that they were not equal if they were not given equal chance to come out into the world and do work.
Yeah.
And today, ask any working woman whether she actually enjoys it. Mostly no. Most women do it because now it's a responsibility and they have to share half the burden of the economics of a family. And if they were well to do enough, most women would choose not to go to work and be
Mm.
homemakers. And so all of that sheds light on the whole start of the movement of equality. Because
Mm.
men and women are not really equal in any terms. Men
Yeah.
and women do not have a comparable strength,
Mm.
physical strength. Men
Yeah.
are way physically stronger by muscle strength.
Muscle.
At the
Yeah.
same time, you take pain threshold. Women
Mm.
can bear pain thresholds far beyond anything a male can
Ever
tolerate.
do. Yeah.
Similarly, women can give birth to children, which men can never do.
Mm.
Women make better homemakers and looking after children because of the very hormones that allow them to do that. And their multiple focus, which
Yeah.
allows them to pay attention to multiple things in the environment, like many children and household chores at the same time. Whereas
Mm.
the single focused male brain does not make a good homemaker to bring up children from a
Yeah.
biological point of view. It takes extra effort for a man to do the same things a woman does. So,
Yeah.
in no way are we really equal. We are complementary. And
Mm.
to be complementary does not require a fight for being complementary. It requires an integration, which
Yeah.
requires more understanding. And so, I personally believe the feminist movement was kind of started by the Industrial Revolution. and by the big corporations wanting to get women into the force, and to do that for their agenda, they made women believe that they needed to live in a man's world the way a man lives, and instead of allowing women to enjoy their femininity, they actually turned it into a war against the genders, and in that divide and rule they profited. And women, once they got out on that war for uh, equality, we've actually sacrificed our femininity. And
Yes.
most feminists are less feminine and more masculine, as far as I have seen, because they are fighting with men in a man's world, by men's rules, by men's standards. And I don't think that is healthy for a woman at all.
Yeah.
And so that's my take on feminism.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think everyone has forgotten. Where did this all start, right? And you have always the first part also you've slightly touched upon this, but now this perspective is so powerful that men and women should not compete, but they should be co-creating. But I think it's the modern media, that is playing into the same agenda that probably started, as you said, in the industrial revolution or the beginning of it, and now it has snowballed into something altogether different, and everybody has a perspective about this, and everyone has a like a word or two to add to it, and youngsters are forgetting that there is certain roles that needs to be played, and there are a lot of things that they can actually do with their own space that they can own in this world.
What I see is that the masses, as we call it, that
Mm.
is people who just follow the way the world is without questioning it too much.
Mm.
That's the masses. And the
Yeah.
masses have always been dictated to and told how to think. Now,
Mm.
wonder why the few people, the privileged, who tell the world how to think, those who
Mm.
run the big corporations, those who run the economic world, they will tell the masses what to eat, what to watch, how to behave, how to dress, and all of that in order to make profits.
Yeah.
Everything is finally a profit making machine for the those who are making profits. The rest is the consumer. The normal
Mm.
human being who calls himself the masses, the common man, is just without questioning it, taking what is being dictated to him through ads, through television, through popular culture, through social media, the peer pressure. So, a free thinker is one who is able to ask questions. Why should I do this? What is this? Why is it supposedly true? Why is this the way that things should be done and not another way? And
Mm.
questioning. Questions always bring understanding. Just blindly following the rules of society, if you find it easy, by all means go for it. But
Yeah.
if you want to have individuality and stand out as a personality and to live life on your own terms, you will have to question everything. It
Yeah.
does not mean to be a rebel without a cause. It means to
Mm.
genuinely look at where is this coming from? What does this mean?
Mm.
What do they mean when they say do this or this is that or fight for equality? Who's asking us to fight for equality? Like, not every person wants the same things, but society, through social media or through mass media, is constantly hypnotizing everybody to be similar.
Yeah.
There are women who don't want to go to work. There are women who are absolutely happy to live a very homebound life. There are women who do not want to have social media accounts, like genuinely. There are
Yeah.
women who enjoy wearing their hijab. So it is an individual choice at the end of the day. It should be an individual choice as well. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that women have not been oppressed in society. I'm not saying that women have not been unjustly treated or that those fights were unnecessary. No, those were absolutely right. And wherever women very truthfully stood up for themselves and asked for what they needed, that was absolutely perfect. But where women start judging themselves against men and then competing with men and then literally trying to defeat a man like an opponent is toxic. That is
Mm.
not feminism. A woman standing up for her rights and asking for what she rightfully deserves or needs from society is one thing. And
Yeah.
competing with men at a toxic level on a masculine level is insane.
Yeah. So while we are on this topic about not just feminism but this patriarchy and how it is now being perceived, or made to be perceived, how is it harming men emotionally and psychologically? Like, have you noticed the changes in men in this context?
How I see it is that the modern day young man and the young boy are actually having conflicts within themselves as
Hmm.
to what it means to be a good man.
Hmm.
Because society has changed, gender roles and responsibilities and gender rules of engagement have changed, and women have become far more powerful than they ever were in the modern world.
Yeah.
And so boys are finding it difficult to be at the level of achievement that everybody is kind of expecting from them without
Yeah.
having very clear uh, role models,
Hmm.
without having very clear rules of engagement. Whereas now women have a lot more push from everyone saying, rise up and become this and do that. And boys are not having an equivalent set of rule book by which to be
Guidelines.
yeah,
Yeah.
guidelines to be a productive man or a good man, and how to should they see women as their equals and just let them do everything themselves, or should they actually let their instinct to support and help and protect and provide, should that kick in? Or so all these gender roles have kind of created a lot of confusion, I think, more for the boys than for the girls. But the
Yeah.
girls face the problem when they get into a established relationship
Hmm.
with the opposite gender, and they try to start a family. That's
Hmm.
when girls generally tend to feel that they are both are coming in like the mass from their masculine energy, where women are entering a relationship as though they're equals with the man, and they
Hmm.
both have similar mindsets because they've been competing in a male dominated world to be
Like
productive.
a boy, like a
Yeah,
man.
like a boy. So
Yeah.
girls are growing up with a boy's mindset, but when their femininity kicks in, they start to see it as weakness.
Hmm.
And we have actually lost the feminine side. So that's where I think girls can take a lot of advice from the older generation of women. Maybe not even their mothers, maybe their grandmothers, if they are
Hmm.
around, to get a kind of feel of what it is to be an authentic female, to have femininity. Because a woman who is postmenopausal already has a certain femininity that has come into her through nature,
Yeah.
and trying to understand that will help. It's very difficult in today's day and age to tell a girl what it is like to have femininity compared to that cutthroat competition in which you're trying to be one up with
Yeah.
each other. That's destroying relationships at a very mass scale.
Authentic female. I just love that word, the coinage that you just brought in. That the whole essence of this, it's just getting encapsulated into that two words itself. But I think it's, yeah, I mean, like, popular media and all the information influx that we have is conditioning us to think a certain way, to look at non-product, like, to define productivity, be useful, and all of that
Yeah.
in terms of forgoing our own inner energy and what we really wish to do. That beauty of yin and yang is kind of
Yes,
getting
it's
lost.
missing. Yeah, the being the yin to the yang is what I meant by being the authentic female. Because I'm someone who discovered that very late, much later in life, because I'm someone who was always on a competitive edge, living in a male dominated industry like the film industry, living alone as a woman in the world and having to provide and protect myself. So
Yeah.
when the woman allows the man in her life to provide and protect,
Mm.
she today in today's world starts to feel weak,
Hmm.
because of the societal ideas of self sufficiency. But if a
Yeah.
woman is so self sufficient, she makes the man feel useless in the relationship.
Yeah.
And that dynamic actually brings to our awareness that there is some imbalance in the way boys and girls are growing up under similar rules and
Hmm.
laws and ideas of of equality. It's actually killing the femininity in a girl, and in turn that is killing the masculinity in a male, because he's saying, if I'm supposed to provide and protect, if the girl does not need me to provide and protect, then what's my role in the relationship? And
At
girls
the
feel that if
outset.
they allow the man to provide and protect, then she is helpless or useless or weak. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's not true. When the man provides and protects, the woman actually nourishes and becomes the very ground for the entire family, the
Hmm.
entire energy field in which the family actually grows. So it's a very delicate balance that can't be expressed in words as much as just letting go of that need to be in control. I think women have been shaped by society to always need to be in control,
Yeah.
and so they don't let go of control even with the man, and so the man feels very competed with, and so that leads to this tug of war between the yin and yang instead of that beautiful dance of energy.
Mm. I want to dig deeper into the little grim realities that many girls are facing. So, in the same thread of thought, about owning it and actually get having that ownership of their realities. So, we see a lot of debates about abortion, bodily autonomy. Then there are so many discussions about reproductive rights, even access to education. I can we can we've known a lot of girls who are forced to skip schools and just not be part of this whole society because of the way they are. And this, even when world is moving on in such a fast pace, society somehow is still struggling to create that space for women, and women are in turn getting not being able to have full ownership of their bodies and choices. So I mean, in India we see a different um, context for this, but in countries or people living in Africa, it's a completely different scenario. In countries like Afghanistan or even in the US, where like we see that the society is a little bit more open. Um, the individuals that are aligned with all of these things and rights and women's own ownership of her body and choices are quite shaded, right? In shaded with politics, shaded with too many opinions from a lot of people, shaded with the governance policies, etc. So what do you have as comments on this, like for a girl navigating all of this? What's your comment on why is this so, and will it ever change?
Um, See, woman has always been viewed as property, like
Mm,
real estate. It's like she's precious because she's finally like the field in which you're going to sow seeds, from
mm,
where you're going to get your harvest.
yeah.
The next generation is going to come from the women of today. And so that is why everybody is so invested in the woman. It's not just for herself, it's because of the next generation that's going to come out through her. It's because of
Mm,
the influence that she has in the family. We know the influence that the mother of the household has, the
mm,
influence that the it's just an everyday, she's more than just a person, she's a field, she's an energy field, she's
yeah.
that field from which the next harvest is going to come out. And that's why there's less autonomy and there's more of everybody having a say in it,
Mm,
because I think it's because of that, because she's literally that energy field in from which all other things are going to come through. And it's a very subtle topic because every society deals with it differently. Every
yeah.
country deals with it differently. Within every country, uh, like every state, every district deals with it differently. So it's not a broad, there's no broad answer to this. that this is what will fix it.
Yeah.
uh, I believe that it should be more territorial and more cultural,
Cultural.
more tradition based, because there's a lot of roots in that tradition. Like an
Mm.
African tradition and an African culture has to do with that genetics, that mindset. There
Mm.
is history and there's so much tradition. And when we go with tradition and culture, we have a support system that is built over millennia. When we try to do this very modern world global idea of one size fits all, it never does. It never does. And everybody seems to be then fending for themselves because now they've forgotten the age old traditions that could support them. And at the same time, now they're having to reinvent the wheel every time on an individual basis. So
Mm.
I'm personally someone who likes to bank on traditional and cultural ways of doing things, from
Mm.
food to styles of following rules and everything. I see the cultural wisdom is something that really protects and provides for larger framework to work
Mm.
with. Instead, a
Yeah.
very modern world does not seem to have any framework. It's all impromptu and very, all the responsibility seems to fall on the individual, and each
Yeah.
individual is just navigating it at that given point of time, where the world scenario, like today the world scenario is so crazy with all the various wars going on and all of that. Now,
Mm.
every woman at different age groups is finding herself in a different world at any given time. By the time she navigates that world, it could be that in the next 4 to 5 years, the world is again going to shift and change. And then you
Yeah.
seem to be reinventing the wheel all the time. Instead, if you are grounded in your country and your region's sensibilities and
Mm.
ways of looking at the world and ways of navigating through life that have been handed down from generation to generation, you have some support system, you have a structure,
Yeah.
rather than being this global citizen who is just going with the flux of the world, whatever world events, and having to follow the news to know what's going to happen next in your life. I
Mm.
think better than that is to bank on your own culture and tradition, which gives you some kind of backbone and cultural support from your own surroundings. Because what
Yeah.
is true for an American is not the truth of someone living in Afghanistan, is not the truth of someone living in um, an African country, is not the truth of someone living in a Middle Eastern country. So it's never the same. Everyone is
Yeah.
living different realities and in different worlds. We can't have one size fits all. And so
Yeah.
there's no one answer to this question. And for me, the one answer is to bank on your own cultural heritage and your
Mm.
tradition and your family values. And that kind of gives you a community to belong to.
Yeah. So, in a way, world progressed economically and technologically very fast that the emotion and morality of it could not catch up with it, right?
I would
So,
say it. We grew exponentially, technologically, and economically at the expense of our own emotional and cultural background. We
yeah.
literally, in our the mad revolution of globalization, has made us neither become global citizens, neither are we now grounded in our own cultures and traditions. We are all now just vaguely connected, but we don't eat the same kinds of food, we don't speak the same languages, we don't have the same cultural backgrounds, we don't have the same belief systems, we don't dress the same way, and yet we are all supposed to live by some unclear global standard. So
Mm.
I think the world is going back to a state. The wars that are going on right now are going to lead to a new world order where we will break free from globalization and
Mm.
this entire one globe, and everybody is living the same kind of life, which is not true. That's a huge
Yeah.
economical lie. It's a very it's a convenient lie to make everybody consumers. We think we are all consuming the same kind of materials from across the globe, and so all our supermarkets have similar multinational brands, and so we are all living the same life. No, we're not.
No, we're
And
not.
I think we're going to go towards more. regional, own produce, live from your own countries and cultural culture and your
Yeah.
own traditions. I think that's where the world is going to. I think we did a nice experiment for around 20 years, and I
Mhm.
think the experiment has failed. A few people became really rich, and the rich became richer, and
Yeah.
the rest got more confused, and inflation hit the roof. And now I think we're going to go back to our own um, homegrown life.
Yeah. Time for a reset.
I think it is. That's the reset that's going on in the world right now. I
Yeah.
really believe that.
Talking about reset and the world, I just want to touch upon a very interesting perspective that I wanted to get from you. Historically, many societies have been matrilineal, right? I mean, like, we see a lot of matrilineal cultures in India, in Nepal, in pockets of South America, in many places in Africa, but not spoken about too much because it has gotten diluted and people don't know about that way of living anymore. And in all these matrilineal cultures, there are strong feminine centered systems in it. Yet today, societies are like somehow intrinsically patriarchal. And when I say patriarchal, I'm just not saying like in a oh man leads the world kind of way, but it's also about our thought process and how it just gets reiterated. And women, especially older women, not owning that power that they used to have. Where do you think this kind of a shift began?
I believe it's the same where we started this podcast off with, where
Mm.
women were made to forget their femininity and behave like little men, and to compete with men in a man's world, and be told that it's yours to fight for and achieve. And
Mm.
it's not the same. The way men can fight in a corporate world is not the same for a woman who is also a mother, who is also the maker, who so it's not equal.
Yeah.
And yet she's now burning herself out to be that equal in a man's world. And once
Mm.
that kind of living began, and it's not everywhere, it's only in the corporate world, it's only in the very modern world. There's so many people who are still living very traditional rural lives across the globe, and they're not suffering the same problems,
Mm.
and they seem to be much happier than, even if they are poorer or they don't have as much exposure to the world, they have a higher happiness quotient.
Mm.
The overall quality of life is better, the overall quality of their family life and relationships are better. And now I think we are seeing that, and the educated world who thought they were superior are now realizing that their little experiment might have failed.
Yeah, I mean, like even in corporates, this is something I've also personally experienced. Any When we have these policy changes that bring in a menstrual leave, maternity leave, we always have, as a woman, I always have a very big fear that I might be seen as a burden at my workplace if I avail those kind of leeways that we are given. But somehow the system seems to be designed for male experiences, and it makes me feel like very bitter and the resentment and all of that when it comes to the system that is around me.
Yeah.
So for I mean, this is just a personal experience that I've had. The policies that are actually meant to help women um, navigate the corporate world, somehow it is just turning and biting us.
Yeah, because who's making those policies?
Yeah.
Either they are made by men or they are made by women who have already become so male way of thinking, who have a very male way of thinking, a masculine way of thinking. So
Mm.
we have to understand that all of us, whether men or women, have a masculine and a feminine energy in them.
Yeah.
And men have never been allowed for the longest time to get in touch with their femininity.
Mm.
Men are not allowed to get into their emotional side. They're not allowed to express themselves freely. They're given very rigid rules to grow up with to be a man. And
Yeah.
now the similar kind of rules are being imposed on women as well. Like it is frowned on to be feminine. The
Mm.
more masculine you are, the more structured you are, the more consistent you are, the more logical you are, the more gritty you are, the more successful you are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Whereas feminine energy is not like that. Feminine energy is not competitive. to start
Mm.
with. It's very inclusive. It is used to huddling up. It's used to big
Yeah.
huddles. And like if you see a group of women talking, they can all talk at the same time and everybody seems to understand what everyone's saying. But if you have one man in the group, it has to be a start and stop way of conversation, because without which the single focused male brain cannot understand it. So if you look at
Mm.
our corporate culture today, women have adopted the male way of speaking, which
Yeah.
is like a one way conversation. When one
Yeah.
person speaks, the other is absolutely silent, and when the other is speaking, the uh, other has to be silent. And that's not the way women actually talk. They all talk at the same time in a group if women are put in a room together.
Yeah.
And femininity is not at all what we are in touch with in the modern world. Whether men or women, we have all lost touch with femininity.
Mm.
And once that comes back into the world, we'll have a very different world.
Yeah, and as you said, that awareness and everything is coming back. And
Yeah.
one thing I've repeatedly heard women say is that they somewhere in this chaos of this whole work, societal pressure, and all of that, they stopped listening to their body's voice. Like that disconnect happened, and they're all trying very hard to bring back that connect with their own body. So if someone is going through such a phase, what's your advice on how can they connect back to their own internal voice and their own body's voice and be their own person amongst all this chaos?
It would take a drastic shift,
Hmm.
because just to be in a a male structured world, especially
Hmm.
the corporate world, and to compete with men, you
Hmm.
have to deal from your masculine side.
Yeah.
And the moment you start behaving and thinking like a man, your
Hmm.
body has to compensate for that kind of thinking and behaving by creating those hormones. So those
Hmm.
women will definitely have a higher testosterone level, will
Yeah.
have estrogen drops, will have very low progesterone, will have very high cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So the
Yeah.
stress hormone, the moment the stress hormone, so anyone working in a corporate atmosphere knows that there's very high stress because it's unnatural. It's
Yeah.
not in our nature to be sitting inside a four walled space day in, day out, with maybe hardly any sunlight ever, not getting any touch with the earth, no
Hmm.
grounding, walking in shoes, maybe even high heel shoes, wearing tight clothes, sitting in an air conditioned environment, looking at a screen all day, having
Hmm.
meetings when you are on your progesterone phase and actually want to just lie down and maybe eat some sugary foods or some glucose in your body. And instead of that time, you're in a tight dress, in a high heels, having a corporate meeting and eating a low carb diet. Basically what happens to the body is cortisol spikes, progesterone goes down, and progesterone is the relaxing hormone in a woman, whereas
Hmm.
cortisol can lead to later being turned, it can make testosterone actually feel more powerful. Like men can take stress, they go to a gym and they lift heavy weights, and the cortisol actually allows their testosterone to also spike.
Yeah.
Adrenaline rush helps men to feel more productive, whereas
Hmm.
all of these things make a woman progesterone dip, which means she feels less rested, she feels more chaotic, she feels more confused. And now the same things you do make the testosterone levels in a woman rise as well. And now her entire system is out of balance.
Hmm.
And that is why women are not able to get in touch with their femininity, because their femininity at a biochemical level, at a neurochemical level, is already upset. It's not an easy one fix that, oh, you will just change your mindset and you'll feel more feminine. No, at your
Yeah.
physical level, it is out of whack. You will have to, you will have to drop out of the system.
Even diets, gym, and everything, like
It's
up until
it's
very
male.
recent. Yeah, we were like treated as a little man, just
Yeah,
as
we
you
have been
said.
creating little men out of women, and women have been making themselves little men. And it's not natural for a woman to go to a gym every day of the month to work
Yeah.
out. It's not natural for women to do intermittent fasting every day of the month. You can do intermittent fasting during your estrogen phase. You can do gym workouts during your estrogen and testosterone phase, your ovulation phase. You have the energy to do that. But if you do the same in the last 14 days of your cycle, you will get injuries, you will put on weight instead of lose weight, you will tax your muscles, you will cause cortisol spikes. If you do intermittent fasting, if you do cold plunges, none of this is for women. Those are male activities. A woman needs a much softer approach, needs a much more balanced approach, and needs to do different things at different times of her cycle.
Mm.
There's a time for resting, there is a time for exercise, there's a time for diet, there's a time for fasting, there's a time for rest, there's a time for eating more starches and glucose, there's a time for pampering oneself. And
Yeah.
we have to learn that in our cycle. When is the time for each? And I have mentioned them quite broadly in the book Womenopause. But over and above all of that, we just need to do our own research and slowly and steadily uh, create a more feminine life for ourselves.
I think, many young women, especially now, because of so much conditioning, we kind of refuse to listen to the voices of older women telling us these things. That
Yeah,
always happens, and
because we think they are wrong.
yeah.
We
But
really believe that they are wrong.
also, I have had the privilege of discussing at length with a lot of girls from, especially the Kectil network around the world. And
Mhm.
one thing that I've noticed is, like dialing back to the same thing that you just mentioned about connecting with your roots, because the world is smaller, all the perspectives and everything clashes a lot with the cultural background that we have. And we are slowly losing the color and we are trying to just fit into the global standards, which are not what we come from. So, it- most of the people that I have discussed and who are in the developing countries that are in the Kectil family all have a
Mhm.
colonial past. So, I always feel that is probably where this cultural erosion probably happened. And what is your advice on how to actually own it back? To feel proud of who you are, of all the colors and all this richness that you have in your culture, and just own it back. What's your
Means
advice on that?
like all the things we touched on in today's podcast, all of it has to come together. It's a very big effort because we have lost touch with our cultures and heritage and our traditions over decades, and
Yeah.
in some cases even centuries.
Mm.
So it's not easy, and I don't think most people can ever really go back to the old way. We have to forge a new kind of normal which is in touch with our modern day, like even the surge of the internet and the change in the way the world works as so much online. Even food is online and
Yeah.
everything is through the online media, that we can't fully go back to our own traditions. We can never recreate that old life. Like whether you go back and create a traditional house or go back to your traditional house and try to live the way your grandmother lived, you cannot.
Mm.
You cannot recreate that life ever again. And that's a huge loss. But we can find a new balance uh, in our own life based on traditional values, traditional medicine systems, traditional lifestyle, which is much more healthy, which is much
Mm.
more in keeping with the diurnal the circuitry of the life, like waking up with sunset and finishing your meals by waking up at sunrise, winding up your meals by sunset, sleeping earlier, waking up more fresh after more hours of sleep.
Yeah.
That's an old school thing now. If you think about it, to
Mm.
sleep and get actual 7 to 8 hours of sleep is not part of our modern world anymore. Just
Mm.
imagine, just that much. Just to eat home cooked meals has become like an impossibility for most people. Just to get enough sunlight and to walk barefoot on the ground has
Mm.
become impossible for so many people. So look at how artificial we have made our life, how far away we've gone from nature.
Mm.
And those are the things that we can reincorporate. We can never go back to the old traditional way of living on a more than 10 to 20%. To recreate that whole thing is almost impossible today, because you will have Wi-Fi and microwave and your telephone waves going through your environment wherever you decide to live. You have to, however deep into a forest you think of going. So it's almost impossible, but we can reconnect with nature, and
Mm.
we can take help from our older generation on how to do that. The generation that was born before the internet.
Yeah.
That was born in the analog age,
Analog.
because even that's going to become obsolete very soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Len. I mean, we've had a very long conversation, but I just want to have a very like a one last question, which kind of sums up everything that we've had. Not just the part two of this conversation, but also summing up what we have also been talking about in part one. So the context of part one was especially Woman or Pause, the book that you've written, and now we've spoken at length about how men, women, society, and everything that has shaped us, and how we can actually stand up and be ourselves in midst of all the changes and chaos. So very funny or very kind of interesting conversation I heard somewhere is. Women, after their years of fertility are over, they tend to live longer than men, but there is a very long period of their life, postmenopausal, that they are alive, and the reason why they are there in this world is to be like the people who bring forth stories.
The wisdom keepers.
Wisdom keepers, yes. So, yes, Lena, exactly. That is the word I was searching for, the wisdom keepers. Would world be a better place if people actually sat up and listened to these wisdom keepers and what they have seen through this, like the entire journey that they've had? How different would the world be?
Um, I basically don't believe in this better world concept, because
Mm-hmm.
I believe every generation has thought, oh, they're going to make a better world. And
Mm.
there is no better world. The world we live in will always be the world and will always be changing. And there's never going to be a perfect world, a better world. Is That's how I see it. The world is always going to be corrupt. The world is always going to be power driven. Those in power are always going to try to squeeze the last bit of life out of the masses, and all of that. It sounds very negative, but that's
Yeah.
on a mass scale,
Yeah.
which we don't need to really look at and focus on, which will make our life look very dark and despondent. But that is a very harsh reality of the world. I'm talking
Mm.
about the larger picture. There will always be wars, there will always be chaos, there will always be power struggles.
Mm.
And that is the nature of the world. Once we
Yeah.
accept that, that itself is wisdom. And that will usually come from a wise old lady, because men are usually looking at more power, more. So, that masculine world that we live in, that's always going to be similar. And I don't think in our lifetimes we are going to see the feminine world. It's
Mm.
going to take a long time for that polarity shift, maybe millennia. So we are not really going to be concerned with it in our lifetime, or in the next few generations at least. So that's where I believe that we need to take a very individual stance. And if every individual on earth, just think, every individual on earth tries to live their best life, their
Mm.
best self, being the best self they can be, the self they're proud of, that would really make a change in the world. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. That is the only possibility. And really, the most practical way of seeing a better world is to change your perspective to a more empowering perspective, where you do things that empower you, and also, if possible, empower others. If possible. But at least every action, every word, every thought that you have should be empowering to you
Mm.
personally, should be for your growth, should be so that you're a better person for yourself, so that you feel better, you think better, you have more clarity, you have more peace. And once you have all of these things in place, it will automatically overflow and start being empowering to others. But always starts with self love And self love then overflows into love for others.
Always, always a pleasure listening to you, Lena. And thank you so much. There are like so many new perspectives that I got, and there will be a lot of young men and women sitting around the world and listening to this. And I'm pretty sure that you've actually, profoundly changed the way they think, at least about one or two topics that you've touched upon today. There were like a huge landscape of things that you took them through, and I'm so grateful that we've had this conversation. It's always a delight speaking to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashwati. Thanks for the opportunity to share my life experiences with the youth. And I hope that they have at least one empowering takeaway from today's podcast. And if you have multiple, please share it with Ashwati and in your Kectil group so that it will help others. Whenever you have a breakthrough moment, please share it with your peer group because it will definitely help somebody else who did not see that perspective maybe when they listen to something. And thanks, Ashwati, for again being an amazing host of a podcast that is really empowering to everyone. Thank you so much. And
Thank you
thanks to
so
Kectil all over again.
Yeah, and we wish all the success for the release of your new title. We are all waiting for it, Woman of
Thank
Boss.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and as soon as it, like it's available for the whole world to, actually
It's,
grab a copy, we'll be
yeah.
publishing more news
Sure.
about
In
it.
India, it's already available for pre order from Amazon.
Mhm.
So anyone in India can head out to their Amazon app and pre order the book, and it
Yeah,
should be available from June mid onwards.
June of 2026.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. Thanks,
thanks.
Ash.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for tuning into Kectil World Youth Network podcast today. We come with very powerful voices just like Lena's, and we come back with such stories, voices, and perspectives from around the world. Uh, no, bye bye from both of us today. And yeah, we'll come back again. Bye.
Wish you all the best. Wish you a great future. Bye.